a breeding wader doesn't know whether they've landed in a reserve or on farmland. So the more we can kind of fill in the gaps, it's just good news for wildlife.
So I'm Kerry. I work as a farm conservation advisor, wet grassland advisor, and I advise across the Norfolk Broads and Suffolk Coast, advising private landowners who have grazing marsh on how to manage them for breeding waders and wintering wildfowl. So we are on some private land in Norfolk, and the farmer here has created some foot drains for breeding waders and wintering waders.
So traditionally, a foot drain was called a foot drain because it's a foot wide, foot deep, dug by hand, spade to get water off the marshes in the winter. So what we do, we come along with a tractor and a machine on the back called a spoil spreader, which digs the drain out and spreads the material at the same time in one pass. And we're trying to create features like this, which are sort of 3 metres wide, a sort of average of half a metre deep in the middle. But the important thing is that really gentle slope, because what we want is ideally, this would be full of water, and then over the breeding season it draws down and creates a lovely wide muddy edge where all the insects are, as feed for the chicks and the adults.
We have a lot of marshes in this part of the country, but water is getting more and more scarce, and through the summer often the marshes will dry out, so we have to find ways of keeping water on the land, because the edges of muddy pools and ditches provide the food that the chicks need to eat. So corona midge larvae is what the chicks of waders feed on, and therefore the lapwings are able to produce more chicks and be more successful in their breeding habitat. So we create these features to bring the water onto the land from surrounding ditches and keep it on there through May and June when the lapwings will be breeding.
I mean, where we're stood right now, RSPB Northwood Hill Reserve is just over there. We have a couple more reserves sort of further down the coast. I think the main thing for wildlife is just sort of producing a more connected landscape. A breeding wader doesn't know whether they've landed in a reserve or on farmland, so the more we can kind of fill in the gaps, I think we're just providing continuity of habitat. So on a landscape scale, I think it's great. We're sort of paving the way for migratory birds, breeding birds, but also site-specific, we're just improving the habitat that's here as well. So we're increasing the offering in terms of the sort of carrying capacity of the local area for wildlife. So breeding waders are predominantly going to benefit from what we're doing, but also invertebrates as well. I mean, increasing the water in an area is massively going to boost sort of invertebrate life as well. So I think it's going to be sort of like a range of positive effects on site and then within the broader landscape as well. Working with local farmers, landowners is a massive part of the work that we're doing in the Species Survival Fund, particularly on the Hoop Peninsula. It's a very tight-knit community. It is isolated in many ways, but also it's from that I think there's a real sort of sense of unity within local farmers and landowners. There's a very strong sort of farm cluster group here, which is amazing. And there's a real drive and passion for farmers to deliver habitat for breeding waders and wildlife in general. I think one of the other benefits of working with local landowners and farmers as well is they've got such an intimate knowledge of the landscape. I mean, for many of them, they've farmed these areas for decades, if not generations. So they have a real key understanding of what's going on those sites, whether it's water, whether it's wildlife that are using them. And I think it's just invaluable. And you can't get that through any other means than just sort of, living a life in this area, out in the marshes, on the farmland. So they've got so much knowledge that they can share with us, and it's just indispensable.
We've got a great passion for the marshes. The marshes are a very unique place. Down here on the St Mary Sue, the North Kent Marsh is very much a hidden gem compared to the busy Medway towns that we've got around us. They're very sort of raw sort of place down here. We seem to have the weather is very volatile, and we seem to go from extremes. This time last year, most of the water, most of the marshes behind us were underwater, and this year we seem to have had sort of 5 mil of rain in the last 2 months. We are looking to go from sort of converted arable marshes, and we're looking to put in more reels, raise water levels, put in solar pumps. It creates a better landscape for mainly breeding waders.
I think this is a really good example of how we're using what's already on site to influence the changes that we're going to make. This site at the moment doesn't hold a lot of surface water, but one of the really strong points is there's an amazing sort of ditch network that runs through the site, and we can use that to our advantage to move water around. So I think here's a really good example where we're going to use an existing low point, and you can see there's some sort of variance in topography in the field parcel, and we're just going to expand upon that. We're trying to let the landscape sort of inform us of what it naturally wants to do, and we're going to try and expand and enhance that basically. So the more that we can keep this filled with water throughout the entirety of the year, or as much as possible, the better it is for wildlife. So again, that kind of resilience and resistance to drought periods and things like that. So hopefully this will all tie together really nicely. Cool.